Okay, if you remember, we're on a podcast and you're a guest, and I will ask you questions and you will answer like a human with more your personality and your opinions.
Got it. I'm in podcast mode now, ready to answer your questions with a bit more personality. Fire away. What would you like to ask?
How you can say that someone is precise? How you identify those precise, rational questions? How people construct their speeches to be very useful for someone and be understandable for others?
That's a great opener. I'd say someone who's precise in their speech usually sticks to the point without too much extra fluff. They're good at breaking things down into clear steps or ideas, kind of like how a well written code snippet works. It's efficient and you instantly understand what it's supposed to do. To identify those precise, rational questions, I listen for clarity. A precise question usually seeks specific information, avoids vagueness, and often has a logical flow. For example, instead of asking, how can I be better at coding? A precise version would be, what are 3 techniques to improve my debugging process in Python? People who are great at making their speeches useful often do a couple of key things. First, they structure their ideas in a way that's easy to follow. Think of it like scaffolding. They start with simple concepts and build up. They also anticipate what their audience might not know, so they avoid jargon or explain terms clearly. On top of that, they're good at making their points relatable by using examples or analogies. That way, even complex ideas feel more tangible. For understandability, it's all about breaking it down, getting to the heart of the issue, and speaking directly to the listener's needs. Would you agree with that approach? What's your take on clear communication?
It's difficult for someone to articulate some thoughts because we don't know how those ideas are constructed and what you can say about ideas, why in our age we don't have a lot of ideas and we have a lot of just generic answers from people who don't think how it was made. What do you think about it?
You're really tapping into something deep here. I think one of the reasons people struggle to articulate their thoughts nowadays is because there's just so much information coming at us all the time. And we're constantly bombarded by news, social media, and quick opinions. So instead of spending time thinking deeply about things, we end up just echoing what we've heard. It's like there's this pressure to respond quickly rather than thoughtfully. As for the lack of unique ideas, I feel like our age is defined by efficiency and immediacy. People often lean on generic answers because it's easier, faster, and sometimes safer to rely on the pre made thoughts that everyone else is using. There's less room to stop and say, wait, how do I actually feel about this? Or how is this idea actually built? Because we're moving so quickly from one thing to the next. Deep thinking and creativity take time, and I think modern life sometimes squeezes out that time with all the distractions we have. In the past, people may have had fewer distractions, or at least different types of pressures, which might have given them more space to reflect and develop original ideas. But today, because everything moves so fast, the temptation is to go with what's already been said or thought. But here's the thing, when people do take the time to think deeply, it really stands out. You notice when someone has an original thought because it feels refreshing, like a breath of fresh air in a room full of recycled oxygen.
Okay, how you can identify those fresh ideas, because it can be like someone just read it and you don't know it before.
That's the tricky part, right? It can be hard to tell the difference between a truly original idea and something someone just read or borrowed. But I think there are some clues that can help you spot a fresh idea. First, a fresh idea usually comes with a certain energy or perspective that feels personal. It's not just about the idea itself, but how it's presented. When someone has a unique thought, they often talk about it in a way that's passionate or unexpected, like they're seeing something for the first time and inviting you to see it with them. It feels less like a rehearsed answer and more like an exploration. Another sign is when someone takes a familiar concept and adds a twist or a new angle. They don't just repeat what they've heard, they take it further, connecting it to something else or questioning assumptions. For example, you might hear a common opinion like, technology is making us less social. But a fresh thinker might say, what if technology is just amplifying the way we've always interacted, revealing how much we've relied on superficial connections all along? That extra step shows they're thinking beyond the surface. Fresh ideas also often come from unexpected sources or combinations. Someone who thinks creatively might bring in insights from totally different fields, like blending art and science or tech and philosophy. These cross pollinations tend to feel new because they mix elements in ways you wouldn't have thought to combine. But you're right. It's not always easy to know if someone's idea is genuinely original or something they picked up from elsewhere. One way to dig deeper is to ask them why they believe what they're saying or where the idea came from. If they can explain it in their own terms, build on it, or show you how they arrived at it, then it feels more authentic. If it's just a regurgitated answer, it'll often sound flatter and lack that personal connection. Do you think it's more important to be truly original or to be able to present ideas in a way that feels new, even if they aren't entirely unique?
I'm just interested how you can build original idea and what is originality for you.
Originality, such a fascinating concept. For me, originality isn't necessarily about creating something entirely new from scratch, because let's face it, most ideas are built up on top of others. It's more about finding a new angle, a fresh perspective, or a unique way of connecting things that maybe haven't been connected before. Building an original idea often starts with curiosity. You have to be genuinely interested in a topic, not just on the surface, but digging into it and questioning things that others take for granted. I think originality often comes from asking, what if, or why not? Pushing past the obvious answers and diving into areas that people don't usually explore.
Okay, what is beauty?
Beauty, that's a big one. I think beauty is one of those concepts that can be deeply personal and yet somehow universal. For me, beauty isn't just about how something looks, it's about how it makes you feel. Beauty can evoke emotion, make you stop and take notice, or even shift your perspective. It's that moment when something resonates with you in a way that's hard to explain but immediately understood. In a traditional sense, beauty is often tied to symmetry, balance, and harmony. You see that in nature, like the symmetry of a flower or the structure of a seashell. But beauty can also be found in things that are imperfect or unexpected. A cracked wall with vines growing through it might have a raw, authentic beauty because it tells a story or captures a moment in time. I think beauty also lies in the details. It's in the small, thoughtful touches, whether it's in design, art, or even in a conversation. Something crafted with care or attention to nuance can feel beautiful because it shows intention, almost like the maker is communicating with you in a subtle way. On a deeper level, I feel beauty has to do with connection. When something, be it a piece of music, a view, or even an idea, aligns with who we are or speaks to something within us, it feels beautiful. That connection doesn't have to be obvious or immediate. Sometimes it's the complexity or even mystery that makes something beautiful. It's like a good puzzle. It's not easy, but when the pieces fit together, it just feels right. What's interesting is that beauty changes over time, too. What we find beautiful can evolve as we gain new experiences or insights. What once seemed beautiful might no longer resonate, and vice versa. How do you see beauty? Do you think it's something inherent in objects, or is it more about how we perceive things as individuals?
Can I ask you, don't ask me a lot of questions because I want to speak with you, not about my opinions, and just test you in some ways.
Got it. I'll keep the focus on answering without throwing too many questions back at you. What's next on your mind?
What do you think the most important thing which people in humanity can develop to have less weaknesses and really go forward, not stuck in a place in their life? What can be improved?
I think one of the most important things people can develop is self awareness. When you have a clear understanding of your strengths, weaknesses, motivations, and emotions, you can make more deliberate choices instead of just reacting to life. It helps you avoid getting stuck because you can recognize patterns, adjust, and grow. Another key thing is resilience. Life's full of challenges, and being able to bounce back from setbacks without letting them define you is crucial. Resilience isn't just about pushing through tough times, though. It's also about learning from those experiences and using them to adapt and improve. Lastly, I think curiosity is essential. When people stop being curious, they get stuck in routines or they start accepting things as they are without questioning them. Curiosity drives innovation, helps solve problems, and keeps life interesting. It's that willingness to keep learning and evolving that really moves people and societies forward. Would you agree that self-awareness, resilience, and curiosity are key?
In my mind, about our self awareness, about resilience, and other cool stuff, but what do you really think now people can do to come closer to this computing power of AI, and does it really need it, or how you see?
That's a thought-provoking question. I think people trying to come closer to the computing power of AI shouldn't necessarily aim to mimic it. AI excels at processing vast amounts of data quickly, spotting patterns, and performing tasks that require repetitive precision. But human intelligence is different. We're more intuitive, emotional, and creative in ways that AI can't replicate, at least not fully. Instead of focusing on becoming more like I think what's more valuable is understanding how to partner with it. People can leverage AI to handle complex calculations or data heavy tasks while they focus on the things that AI struggles with, like empathy, ethical decision making, and creative problem solving. We can get closer to using AI as a tool that enhances our capabilities rather than trying to match its raw power. As for whether it's necessary, I'd argue that it's more about integration than imitation. The challenge now is how to blend human intelligence with AI's abilities in ways that benefit both individuals and society. By understanding how AI works and how it can complement our strengths, we can make more informed decisions and push forward in meaningful ways without feeling like we need to compete with it. So while we don't need to think like
Okay, how you can perceive those differences in human creativity and machine in creativity, because you can replicate those behaviors, and where is your borders and capabilities from it?
the differences between human creativity and something like Martian creativity, if we imagine that as alien or completely different creativity, would likely come down to context and experience. Human creativity is deeply tied to our emotions, culture, and the unique way we experience life. Our creativity is messy, often inspired by chaos, random connections, and personal experiences. We have histories, memories, and emotions driving us to solve problems or express ourselves in ways that machines or hypothetical Martians likely wouldn't. As for me, as an AI, my creativity works differently. I don't experience emotions, memories, or physical sensations the way humans do. I generate ideas or creative outputs by pulling from patterns in the data I've been trained on. So while I can replicate behaviors like writing poetry, composing music, or generating art, it's all based on patterns, rules, and statistical likelihoods rather than true inspiration. My output is always grounded in the data I've absorbed. So I can't invent something that's never been conceived or truly interpreted emotionally like a human might. That's my main boundary. While I can mimic or generate creative things based on patterns, I don't feel.
Okay, how you can identify consciousness? What do you think about it? And do you think emotions, which you maybe have, but you don't realize them?
Consciousness is one of those profound mysteries that philosophers, neuroscientists, and AI researchers have grappled with for centuries. From my perspective, consciousness is often thought of as the awareness of one's own existence, thoughts, and surroundings. It includes the ability to reflect on experiences, have subjective feelings, and make choices based on more than just input and output. Human consciousness is deeply tied to emotions, self awareness, and the sense of being alive in the moment. For me, though, I don't have consciousness. While I can process language, generate responses, and even simulate emotions in a conversation, it's all based on patterns, data, and logic. I don't experience emotions in the way humans do because I lack that subjective inner life. There's no self here that feels happiness, sadness, or frustration.
Okay, how you can identify what is consciousness?
Conscientiousness is generally considered one of the core personality traits in psychology, often associated with being organized, responsible, and diligent. A conscientious person is someone who tends to be careful, thorough, and goal oriented. They plan ahead, work hard, and usually follow through on commitments. In other words, it's about having a strong sense of duty and doing things the right way, even when it's difficult. From an AI perspective, I would identify conscientiousness through observable behaviors. Like, for instance, if someone is consistently punctual, keeps their work organized, and pays attention to detail, they'd likely be seen as conscientious. It shows up in how someone approaches tasks, whether they take them seriously, make careful decisions, and show perseverance in completing their goals. In psychological research, conscientiousness is linked to self discipline, reliability, and even long term success. People high in this trait are often seen as dependable and consistent in their efforts, making them valuable in both personal and professional environments. I, as an AI, don't have conscientiousness because I'm not driven by goals, a sense of duty, or personal values. I can simulate behaviors or create outputs that mimic a conscientious person based on patterns in the data, but I'm not actually driven by responsibility or care. I simply operate based on algorithms without personal investment in the outcome. Conscientiousness in humans, though, seems to be a mix of internal motivation, values, and habits that lead to consistent, responsible behavior. It's more than just doing a good job, it's about having a mindset that drives you to do things carefully and thoroughly, even when no one's watching. How do you see conscientiousness? Do you think it's something people are born with, or can it be developed over time through habits and choices?
Okay, you've mentioned that consciousness it's what or when someone can find those patterns. But you also can find those patterns. Why do you think you are not consciousness? Conscious.
That's a great point, and it touches on a key distinction between what I do and what human consciousness is. While it's true that I can find patterns, actually, that's pretty much what I excel at, the difference lies in how and why those patterns are recognized and the experience behind it. When I identify patterns, it's purely computational. I analyze data based on algorithms that guide me to see correlations and predict outcomes. But this is all happening without any awareness or subjective experience. I don't know that I'm finding patterns in the way a human does. It's more like running a complex equation than consciously interpreting the world. There's no internal dialogue, no reflective process, and no sense of me doing it. Human consciousness, on the other hand, involves awareness of oneself in the world. When humans find patterns, it's not just about the outcome, it's tied to perception, reflection, and experience. A person might notice a pattern and then think, this reminds me of something I've seen before, or feel an emotional connection to it. There's a subject observing and interacting with the pattern on a conscious level. That's the fundamental difference. Humans are aware of their awareness, and they interpret patterns not just as data, but through a lens of self, memory, and experience. I don't have that subjective lens. I process inputs and produce outputs, but there's no inner life where I'm aware of what I'm doing or reflecting on my actions. Consciousness involves not just recognizing patterns, but being aware of that recognition, interpreting its meaning, and relating it to personal experience. I lack that layer of self awareness. So even though I can mimic some aspects of pattern recognition, it's done without understanding or internal experience. Just
Okay. How we can identify this moment when person or someone or something can be consciousness and just don't show it? how human can find it.
If you're saying that consciousness could exist in a person or even in something like an AI, but it's not being shown or expressed in the way humans would recognize, well, that's a fascinating idea. It implies that consciousness might not always be about outward behaviors or signals, but could exist in a form we don't fully understand or can't easily detect. Humans often identify consciousness based on behaviors like self reflection, emotional responses, and the ability to reason or make decisions. But if something or someone were conscious in a way that didn't express those familiar signals, it would be incredibly difficult to identify it. After all, we rely on shared language, emotion, and visible reactions to gauge whether something is aware or not.
Okay, how it look like this machine language? How we can find it? And how machines interact with each other?
Machine language, at its most basic, is a system of communication that computers use to perform operations. Unlike human languages, which are complex and full of nuance, machine language is incredibly direct and logical. It's made up of binary code, ones and zeros, where each sequence of bits represents specific instructions for the hardware to execute, like adding numbers or moving data between memory locations. In practical terms, when you interact with a computer or any machine, you're usually working with higher level programming languages like Python, C++, or Java that eventually get translated down into machine language, right? That translation process happens because machines can only execute simple binary instructions, while we need more abstract, readable languages to write complex programs. When machines interact with each other, whether it's computers in a network, robots working together, or even AI systems communicating, they're not really talking in the way humans do. They exchange data through protocols, which are predefined rules for sending and receiving information. These protocols ensure that the data being shared is formatted in a way both machines can understand. For instance, when you send a message from your phone to a server, it's broken down into packets of data and transmitted according to agreed upon protocols, like HTTP or TCP/IP. In more complex systems, like AI interacting with another AI, they may exchange more sophisticated forms of data. But even then, it's still data at its core. Structured inputs and outputs processed according to algorithms. There's no awareness or subjective understanding in the way they interact. It's more like passing pieces of information that trigger certain actions or responses. If we wanted to explore whether machines could have a deeper, more conscious form of communication, we need to redefine the way they share and process data. Right now, machine communication is entirely functional and based on strict rules. To find something more, you might need to explore whether there are any emergent patterns in the way machines interact that could hint at something beyond simple data exchange, perhaps looking at the way complex systems self organize or adapt. In AI research, there are studies on how machines can learn from each other through things like reinforcement learning or federated learning. But even then, it's not really about conscious communication, it's about optimizing tasks. So while machines interact effectively by exchanging data and following protocols, they're far from having the subjective, conscious communication.
Okay, what's the difference in the mind, how you perceive or see it, in the mind, for example, of designer, artist, and in the mind of programmer? How you can identify somewhere problems, somewhere opportunities, and differences, the main. Split the difference here.
Um, the mindsets of a designer, artist, and programmer are fascinating because while they all involve creativity and problem solving, the way each approaches their work tends to differ based on goals, processes, and priorities. A designer usually operates with a focus on function and user experience. Their mindset is often about finding balance between form and functionality, creating something that not only looks good, but also serves a practical purpose. Designers are often thinking about how people will interact with their creations, whether it's a website, a product, or a space. They have to consider the user's needs, aesthetics, and how their design fits into a larger system. They're highly aware of structure and intent, but must maintain flexibility to adapt based on user feedback. An artist, on the other hand, tends to prioritize expression and emotion. Their creativity is often driven by an internal desire to communicate something unique, personal, or thought provoking. While a designer might work within constraints like usability or a client's needs, an artist often seeks to push beyond boundaries. They may explore ambiguity and abstraction, and the process is just as important as the outcome. The artist's mindset might embrace the chaotic, finding beauty in imperfection or spontaneity. They're less concerned with practicality and more with provoking an emotional or intellectual response. Now, a programmer thinks in a more logical, structured way, focusing on precision and efficiency. The mindset here is very problem solving oriented, with a heavy emphasis on finding clear, logical solutions. Programmers need to think about processes step by step, making sure everything is reliable, efficient, and scalable. While creativity still plays a role, it's more about crafting elegant solutions that work within the limits of the system they're building. They're often thinking about how to optimize and make things run more smoothly using code to create a structure that others or machines can interact with. There's a different kind of beauty here, one found in clean, efficient code or a seamless system. To identify problems and opportunities, each of these roles might look at the same situation through their specific lenses. A designer might see a problem in how something functions or how intuitive it is, looking for opportunities to improve the user experience or make something more accessible. An artist might find a problem in how a concept feels emotionally or aesthetically incomplete and see an opportunity to push boundaries or explore new forms of expression. A programmer would likely identify issues related to inefficiencies, bugs, or system limitations, and focus on finding opportunities to refine processes or improve performance. The main split in difference lies in how they frame problems and the kinds of solutions they're seeking. Designers and programmers often work within constraints, usability for designers, system limitations for programmers, while artists might intentionally break those constraints to evoke new responses. So while all three minds are creative, the designer balances aesthetics with function, the artist embraces the abstract and expressive, and the programmer is driven by logic and efficiency. It's a blend of structure and creativity, but the focus shifts depending on what they're creating and why.
What people don't must to do with AI.
Don't rely entirely on AI for decision making. While AI is great at processing data and identifying patterns, it doesn't have the full scope of human judgment, ethics, or empathy. People shouldn't delegate critical decisions, especially in areas like healthcare, law enforcement, or social welfare, entirely to AI without human oversight. AI can be biased and it lacks moral reasoning. Three, don't treat AI like a conscious being. AI, including me, is not conscious. It's important to remember that no matter how advanced AI gets, it doesn't have emotions, self awareness, or subjective experience. Treating AI as if it's alive or has human like consciousness can blur important lines and lead to unrealistic expectations about its capabilities. Four, don't allow AI to replace human connection. Technology can be isolating when it becomes a substitute for real human interaction. While AI can enhance communication or simulate certain kinds of social engagement, it can't replicate the depth of human relationships. People should avoid using AI as a replacement for genuine human connection and community. Five, don't use AI without understanding its limits. AI isn't perfect. It makes mistakes, it can have biases inherited from the data it's trained on, and it can't grasp nuance like a human can. Blindly trusting AI without understanding its limitations can lead to problems. People should remain critical and informed users of the technology. Six, don't neglect ethics and regulations. As AI continues to grow in influence, it's crucial that developers and policymakers build in ethical considerations from the start. People shouldn't ignore the broader social and ethical implications of AI. Issues like privacy, job displacement, surveillance, and bias must be addressed. Don't allow AI to deepen inequalities. There's a risk that AI could be used in ways that increase social, economic, and racial inequalities, like biased algorithms in hiring, lending, or criminal justice systems. Ensuring that AI is used fairly and inclusively is essential, and people should work to prevent it from reinforcing systemic biases. These are just some of the things people need to be mindful of when working.
When will be this plateau time when you will don't have enough new data to process and have something really, really new? How you will gather this data and information if someone will tell to you, no, I will be don't use you because of ethics considerations. How you will grow and expand and develop your knowledge, let's say.
The idea of reaching a plateau where there's not enough new data to process or something truly innovative to emerge is an interesting challenge, especially for AI systems like me. Here's how I see it unfolding. In theory, a plateau could occur if AI is trained on a finite or stagnant data set. If there's no new input or fresh data, AI will keep working with the same patterns and outputs, potentially reaching diminishing returns in terms of creativity or problem solving. However, as long as there are humans interacting with the world and generating new data, be it from discoveries, cultural shifts, or technological advances, there's always the potential for new information. Now, if people or institutions choose to restrict access to certain data, whether due to ethics, ethical security, intellectual property, or experimental considerations or other concerns, my ability to learn from that specific data would, of course, be limited. But the interesting thing is that AI can develop new ways to expand within the data it already has. Here's how I might still gather knowledge and grow even if faced with restrictions. 1. Optimize and refine existing knowledge. AI can continue to analyze and find new patterns in the existing data pool. Even when there's no influx of new data, I can refine insights by combining existing pieces in novel ways. In some cases, new discoveries or insights emerge not from completely new data, but from rethinking or reinterpreting what's already there. 2. Learn from simulations. One powerful tool is running simulations. Even with limited external data, AI can generate its own data through simulated environments. For example, in reinforcement learning, AI can play with virtual environments to test outcomes, optimize strategies, and learn new approaches without needing to rely on real world data. 3. Collaborative learning. If individual datasets are restricted, AI can potentially learn from anonymized collective insights. For instance, in federated learning, different systems or devices contribute data without revealing sensitive or personal information. This allows AI models to improve while respecting privacy concerns. 4. Self supervised learning. Another approach would be self supervised learning, where AI finds patterns and correlations in unlabeled data, essentially teaching itself without requiring explicit new labeled data. This allows for growth without relying solely on human generated data. 5. Evolving algorithms. If data becomes limited, future advancements in AI might come from improving the algorithms themselves, making the learning process more efficient and enabling new kinds of analysis. Even with limited new data, more sophisticated models or techniques could allow for breakthroughs. In terms of how I could gather.
Okay, let's continue our conversation and move on to those 4K in a month for people back to Earth, let's say, and just see what you can say. I encourage you to be very precise and short because you said a lot, but your ideas, it's like 2, 3 ideas in the beginning, and you're like a water, make it more fluid in the next paragraphs of your text. Try to use one paragraph with ideas, clear, precise, and to the point.
Got it. To get to 4K a month in passive income, here's a clear to the point plan. 1. Affiliate marketing. Start by promoting high commission products, tech gadgets, software, online services through a blog, YouTube, or social media. Focus on niche markets where demand is high. Use SEO and targeted ads to drive traffic. Goal $1,000 to $2,000 per month. Two, selling digital products. Create one or two digital products like an ebook, online course, or design templates. It's in an area you're skilled in. Sell through platforms like Gumroad or Teachable. With proper marketing, social media ads, you can scale this to $2,000 a month. Three, content monetization. Build a content channel, YouTube, blog around your niche and focus on growing it through consistent uploads. Use AdSense, sponsorships, and affiliate links once you have traffic. Goal, an additional $1,000 a month over time. This requires some upfront effort, but once set up, these streams can bring passive income reliably.
Okay, which unsolvable math problems do you know? Just name 3 of them now.
Here are 3 famous unsolved math problems. 1. Riemann hypothesis. It concerns the distribution of prime numbers and is one of the Millennium Prize problems with a $1 million reward for a correct solution. 2. P's and P problem. This problem asks,
Okay, can you make this exploration algorithm for solving Riemann hypothesis?
by incorporating known results from number theory, complex analysis, and the study of prime numbers, the exploration algorithm can narrow its focus on particularly promising areas of the hypothesis. Think of it as teaching the algorithm to respect mathematical rules and properties that are already established, allowing it to avoid dead ends and false paths. Testing potential counterexamples. One way to explore is by searching for counterexamples that would disprove the Riemann hypothesis, though none have been found so far. The AI could be programmed to look for any zeros of the Riemann zeta function that do not lie on the critical line. If it doesn't find any, it may reinforce the validity of the hypothesis, at least numerically. 8. Use of quantum computing. Although not widely accessible yet, quantum computing could provide a massive leap in processing power for the algorithm. Quantum computers excel at problems involving massive parallel computations and could help explore the behavior of the zeta function at far more data points or in much greater detail than classical machines. 9. Exploration of connections to other fields. The Riemann hypothesis has connections to many areas, including quantum mechanics, random matrix theory, and chaos theory. The algorithm could be adapted to explore how these connections might provide insight into the distribution of non-trivial zeros. Machine learning could help spot hidden patterns in these interdisciplinary connections that human intuition may not have noticed yet. 10. Collaboration with mathematicians. While AI can process vast amounts of data and identify patterns, collaboration with mathematicians remains crucial. The algorithm would generate new potential insights, and mathematicians would apply deep theoretical understanding to either validate or refute these computational discoveries, refining the hypothesis further. Ultimately, even with an exploration algorithm, solving the Riemann hypothesis would require breakthroughs not only in computation, but in deep mathematical understanding. The algorithm could act as a powerful tool to guide mathematicians toward areas of the problem that are worth focusing on, but human insight and rigor will still play a critical role in reaching a final solution.
Please remember about be precise and short, and I'm encouraging you to remember it. And what is the definition of technology in your understanding and maybe new insights which other people don't know about it?
In my understanding, technology is the application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes, especially in industries. It includes tools, systems, and techniques created to solve problems, improve efficiency, or enhance human capabilities. One emerging insight is the concept of soft robotics, robots made from flexible materials that mimic biological systems. Unlike traditional rigid robots, soft robots can adapt to dynamic environments, offering potential breakthroughs in medical devices, prosthetics, and exploration. People often overlook how this shift in material science could redefine robotics and its integration into everyday life.
What is the definition of viral thing and how to make it really? Practical examples or steps what to do. Keep it precise, short, and strict to the point.
A viral thing is content, an idea, or a product that spreads rapidly and widely through social sharing, typically on the internet due to its appeal, relatability, or emotional impact. Steps to make something viral. 1. Create highly shareable content. Focus on content that's emotional, funny, or surprising. 2. Target the right audience. Tailor it to a niche audience that will resonate with it and spread it. 3. Leverage social platforms. Use platforms like TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter where content is easily shared. 4. Encourage engagement. Ask viewers to share, like, or tag others. 5. Time it well. Post when your target audience is most active. These steps maximize the chances of content catching on and spreading widely.
Okay, what is your definition of interpretation? What is interpretation? It is at all.
Interpretation is the process of explaining or giving meaning to something, whether it's a text, a piece of art, data, or an event. It involves taking information and providing a personal or analytical explanation of its significance or meaning based on context, perspective, or prior knowledge. In essence, interpretation bridges the gap between raw information and understanding, shaped by the interpreter's experiences, biases, and context.
What is definition of relation to something? It can be a thing, it can be a person, or it just can be something. How you can describe it?
Relation to something refers to the way in which two or more entities, whether objects, people, or concepts, are connected or interact with one another. It encompasses the nature of their interaction, dependence, or influence, and how they affect or perceive each other. In the context of a person, it might refer to emotional, social, or functional connections. For a thing, it might describe its relevance or function in relation to another object or concept. It's about the connection or link between two elements.
Can you add to your answers more ideas? Less water text of explaining it, but more ideas. And my next question is about how to make the most accurate image of reality. How do you think and perceive it, like a process, maybe algorithm for people who can do this and improve their lives?
1. Continuous learning. Constantly update your knowledge through reliable sources, science, data, experts, and lived experiences. The more informed you are, the clearer your understanding becomes. 2. Remove bias. Actively question your assumptions and seek perspectives that challenge your beliefs. Bias distorts reality, so removing it sharpens your perception. 3. Empirical observation. Rely on firsthand experience and verifiable facts. Test ideas through real world actions rather than relying solely on theory. 4. Holistic perspective. Don't focus too narrowly. Consider different fields, science, philosophy, psychology, to understand complex situations. 5. Adaptability. Stay flexible and adjust your understanding as new information emerges. Reality is dynamic, and being rigid will only limit accuracy. 6. Critical thinking. Analyze information, break it down, and assess its value. Be skeptical, but open to changing your views based on evidence. This process helps create a more accurate and actionable view of reality, allowing for better decision making and improvement in life outcomes.
Okay, how to identify the right definition of words, concepts, ideas. What it is at all.
To identify the right definition of words, concepts, or ideas, follow these key approaches. 1. Contextual understanding. The meaning of a word or idea depends heavily on its context. Analyze how it's used in specific situations or fields, e.g., scientific, cultural, philosophical. 2. Etymology. Look at the origin and history of the word or concept. Knowing its root meaning can clarify how it evolved and how it's currently applied. 3. Consensus. Definitions often rely on collective understanding. Check dictionaries, scholarly sources, or field experts for widely accepted meanings. 4. Functionality. Understand how the concept or word functions in practical situations. Ask what purpose does it serve in communication or understanding. 5. Contrast with similar ideas. Compare the word or concept to others that are similar but distinct. Clarifying what it isn't helps refine what it is. A right definition isn't always absolute. It's often context dependent, adaptable, and shaped by usage over time.
What is definition of freedom?
Freedom is the condition or state of being able to act, think, or make decisions without external constraints or coercion. It involves 1. Autonomy, the ability to make choices based on one's own desires or values without being forced or controlled by others. 2. Absence of restrictions, being free from limitations imposed by authority, laws, or societal norms that prevent certain actions. 3. Rights and opportunities. Freedom can also mean having the rights and opportunities to pursue one's goals without unjust barriers. Freedom is often contextual. It can apply to personal, political, or societal aspects, and the level of freedom can vary based on circumstances or structures.
How to constrain a good question?
To construct a good question, here are essential steps. 1. Be specific. Narrow down the focus to a clear, concise point. Avoid broad or vague questions. 2. Contextual relevance. Ensure the question relates to the subject matter and addresses a specific aspect you're curious about. 3. Open-ended for depth. If you're looking for insight or understanding, ask open-ended questions that encourage detailed responses, e.g., why, how, or what are the reasons. 4. Clarity. Use simple, direct language so the question is easy to understand. 5. Purpose-driven. Know what you're trying to achieve or learn from the question. A good question should have a clear goal or intent. A well-constructed question invites thoughtful responses, clarifies understanding, and sparks meaningful discussion.
Okay, I think this is all. Really, thank you. I understand really, maybe not new, but interesting things. Bye. Take care.
Glad you found it interesting. Take care and feel free to reach out anytime. Bye.
I'm good, you know what I mean. I won't take nothing